Supporters of President Donald Trump allegedly harassed a Joe Biden-Kamala Harris bus as it traveled through central Texas yesterday. Now, videos and photos posted on social media show a long line of vehicles flying Trump flags trailing the Biden-Harris bus as it traveled from San Antonio to Austin on I-35. In some of those images, the bus appears to be boxed in by the vehicles. Some members of the Texas Democrats campaign say the car of Biden-Harris staffer there was hit during the incident. As a result of the incident, campaign events in Austin and Pflugerville were canceled. Congressman Lloyd Doggett released a statement saying in part, quote, "This aggressive, abusive conduct by his supporters results from Trump continuing to incite acts of intimidation and violence," end quote. Now, KXAN did reach out to President Trump's regional campaign office, and we are waiting for comment. Meanwhile, Austin police tweeted out this afternoon that they are not working on this investigation and that another department might be investigating. NBC News reports the San Marcos Police Department received a call from the campaign bus asking for an escort, but officers were not able to reach the bus before it left their jurisdiction. They go on to report that a crash was reported, though, and Kyle, no injuries were reported.
The Biden bus was heading, there was a big Greyhound bus-like bus, painted blue with Biden's markings on the side. And it was on Interstate Highway in Texas. And a bunch of Trump trucks, pickup trucks with Trump flags, tried to run it off the road. We're stopping in front of it. And the president saw it, took the video that someone had taken, and tweeted it back out and said, "I love Texas. I love Texas." When I was here in Philly earlier today, there are 80 Trump pickup trucks with flags riding around my block, beeping their horns for a couple hours. They just shut down, they shut down the Garden State Parkway, blocked it. We've never had anything like this. At least we've never had a president who thinks it's a good thing.
It is something. Do you see the way our people, they were protecting his bus yesterday because they're nice. So his bus, they had hundreds of cars. Trump, and the American flag. That's it. You see Trump and American flag. Do you ever notice when you see the other side? I don't even see much of the other side. You don't see any. They have no spirit. They have no enthusiasm. They have no nothing. But you know what? I don't see it. But whenever you see like a small group, because there's got to be small, because there's nobody around, nobody cares. But you see these groups, you never see an American flag. I always say, if you look at a group and you don't see the American flag, you know that's the opposition, you know? And I say...
State and city officials across America are implementing plans to tamp down on any violence or voter intimidation. Stores and businesses are boarded up. The Washington Post reports the National Guard Bureau has established a new unit made up of mostly military policemen to help curb any unrest in coming days. Meanwhile, the FBI is looking into an incident that happened on Friday when a group of Trump supporters driving trucks and waving Trump flags reportedly surrounded and followed the Biden campaign bus as it drove through Texas.
In Texas, this was as the bus was traveling from San Antonio to Austin. Video surfaced showing a number of vehicles with Trump flags and other Trump paraphernalia surrounding the Biden-Harris bus. And at one point, if you watch the video carefully, you can see one of the pickup trucks closely tailgating the car, or the bus, I should say, getting real close, looking like it's trying to intimidate them. And unfortunately, it did lead to some level of intimidation. So in Texas on Friday, Trump supporters surrounded the Biden campaign bus. And in New York and New Jersey on Sunday, Trump supporters halted traffic on 2 major highways. The FBI has confirmed that it is investigating the Texas incident, which Biden described as an effort to run his team off the road. Also, the response from Trump is unsurprising. He has decided to defend these actions, these forms of intimidation, and you shouldn't be shocked by that because he has been egging people on from the beginning. This is what someone does when they know they're unpopular, that people do not want to vote for them. And so he needs to go out of his way to encourage people to essentially engage in these types of acts to discourage people from showing up to the polls and intimidate them. So here's Trump essentially defending these individuals during a rally.
You see the way our people, they were protecting his bus yesterday because they're nice. So his bus, they had hundreds of cars, Trump, and the American flag. That's it. You see Trump and American flag. Do you ever notice when you see the other side? I don't even see much of the other side. You don't see any. They have no spirit. They have no enthusiasm. They have no nothing. But you know what? I don't see it. But whenever you see like a small group, because it's got to be small because there's nobody around, nobody cares. But you see these groups, you never see an American flag. I always say, if you look at a group and you don't see the American flag, you know that's the opposition.
What does the American flag really mean when you don't believe in democracy? What's the point of the American flag if you literally go out of your way to intimidate people from exercising their right to vote? The American flag is a piece of cloth. The American flag is supposed to represent something. And Donald Trump and his supporters don't believe in what it represents. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in democracy. They don't even believe that their own candidate, their preferred candidate, is popular because they have to stoop to this level to intimidate people from voting, to scare people on the Trump-Harris bus. I mean, the actions that Trump and his supporters have engaged in order to disenfranchise voters, to intimidate voters, to essentially attempt to steal the election and call it a victory for Trump on the night of the election when all the ballots haven't even been counted yet, indicates that they don't believe in what the flag represents. So to them, it's nothing more than a symbol that pretends like they believe in patriotism, pretends like they believe in democracy, but they believe in no such thing. They're as un-American as they can get.
So, 2 things about this. First of all, if you got a Trump flag and you want to honk as the Biden bus goes by, or you go by it and you point at your Trump flag, nothing wrong with that, right? But if you surround the bus and they got the bus to slow down to 20 miles per hour on a highway, and you're swerving around the bus and you're in essence trying to comment, and I'll go with a middle ground. The Biden campaign says they were trying to drive the bus off the road. I don't know that the Trump people say anything, but yeah, we were trying to intimidate them. So, but commandeer the bus in any way, shape, or form, that's super dangerous. Don't do that. Don't do that to the Biden bus. Don't do it to a Trump bus. Don't do it to anyone with a Trump sign, a Biden sign, etc. When you start affecting the speed and the direction of any other driver on the highway, you're asking for massive trouble. So unsurprisingly, Donald Trump eggs them on because he likes physicality. He likes getting in people's grill, even on the highway and even in dangerous situations like that. Okay, so if you're MAGA out there right now and going, yeah, that's right, man, this is how you do it. That's right, Trump said it, we believe it. What you do is, if you're a political group, you surround cars or vehicles that you don't agree with on the highway and intimidate them. So I'm sure you guys are all not gonna have any problems if Black Lives Matter surrounds your car with giant Black Lives Matter flags and commandeers your car off a highway. Or if Antifa does that with their Antifa flags and they just surround your car and try to get you to stop in the middle of the highway. I mean, it's not my idea, I think it's a terrible idea. But it's Trump's idea, it's the Republican idea. So when you sign off on it, you don't get to say, no, we peacefully drove your bus off the highway, but you don't get to do that to our cars. No, there is no such thing. Now look, it's of course hypothetical, because there's no way in the world Black Lives Matter cars would do that. And what Antifa, they keep talking about, this dangerous Antifa. I'm not saying there isn't Antifa in the country, there is, right? Have you ever seen an Antifa caravan where they're riding around with their flags and pushing people off? It doesn't exist. And so that's why the thugs in the right wing know this is disproportionate. A lot of the cops are on our side. The president's gonna back us up. So we can either do violence or threaten violence and totally get away with it. And if the other side even does a chant, which is, again, a core First Amendment issue, we'll threaten to lock them up. So, okay, I know you guys don't believe in justice, and you don't believe in equality, and you don't believe in America. And now on top of that, as Anna pointed out, Trump's out there going, no, we stopped counting on November 3rd. We don't count the votes, don't count the votes. If you're in the party arguing to not count the votes, number one, that means you're not only going to lose, you know you're going to lose. There's no one winning who goes, don't count the votes. So you know already for a fact that you're with the loser, okay? And number two, much more importantly than that, if you think you shouldn't count legally cast votes that came in by election day, you're not an American. You're, in a lot of ways, you're a traitor to the idea of this country. We're not gonna do anything about it. We're not gonna threaten you or intimidate you or anything like that. Just know that you prefer dictatorship and you don't believe in freedom at all. Everything you've ever said about freedom was a total lie. All you want is a dictator like Trump, and you don't believe in a democracy where we count everybody's votes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, they're disrespectful to our troops. They're disrespecting the flag. They're disrespecting our Constitution. I think this is incredibly disrespectful to the people who have risked their lives and lost their lives to protect our freedoms. Trump supporters, anti-democratic, anti-American, do not believe in our Constitution, do not believe in our right to vote. These are not people who belong in this country. That type of ideology is not supposed to belong in this country. And it didn't just stop with the Biden bus in Texas. There were other incidents as well, incidents that unfortunately are not being investigated, and the local police departments are doing absolutely nothing about it. So on Sunday, for instance, caravans of Trump supporters blockaded the Governor Mario Cuomo Bridge and the Garden State Parkway, snarling traffic on two of the busiest highways in the New York metropolitan area just 2 days before the election. Now the cops are clearly on these American Taliban members' side. William Duffy, a spokesperson, for instance, from the New York State Police, said that troopers had monitored the protests, but there were no arrests. Let me just stop for a second, because if I can recall correctly, I don't know, maybe I have bad memory. I mean, it did happen like yesterday or last week. Whenever there are Black Lives Matter protesters who block the streets, what's the response from cops? Are cops as open-minded about these blockades? Are they cool with it? Are the local citizens in the area cool with it? Is that totally fine? It seems like there's a little bit of a double standard here. When protesters from Black Lives Matter or any other social justice movement step foot on a road and block a car for a second, oh my God, these people, they're awful, they're terrible, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can protest, fine, you right to assemble, but you can't block the roads, you can't block the roads. Oh, but when Trump supporters do it with the very intention of intimidating voters, it's totally fine. Yeah. Let me give you more details. In New Jersey, for instance, there was a caravan of Trump supporters who snarled traffic on the northbound lanes of the Garden State Parkway near the Chesapeake Services area in South Amboy. And so we have a video of that. Let's just take a quick look, and then Cenk, you jump in.
Yeah. Woo! We shut it down, baby. We shut it down. We shut it down. We shut it down.
All right, couple things here, guys. First of all, Anna's 100% right. If left-wing protesters ever block a highway, people lose their minds. How dare they? This is not a right way to protest. They should all be arrested. When they block a highway, yeah, we shut it down, man, it's awesome. Okay, they just have no effort at parity, equality, because they just fundamentally don't care about justice. They just say, I want to be above you. I don't want to be your equal. And I don't want to have the same rights as you, otherwise, how would I compete? Because it's basically an admission by MAGA losers that they can't compete in a free market, in an open society. So they're like, well, I should have more rights than you. I should get to shut down the highway, but you shouldn't. Well, how do you square that with American ideas? I don't care. I want a dictator. I got it. I understand. And remember, some state legislatures that were Republican, heavily Republican, even proposed bills to let you run down protesters in the highway and kill them. They say, oh, well, if they're in front of your car, we're going to give you, immunity from any kind of liability if you run them over. And you know what happens when you run someone over with your car? As we saw in Charlottesville, they die. And so left-wing protesters were gonna kill in the streets, and we're gonna try to give you immunity. Right-wing protesters shut down highways, drive people off of the roads, or intimidate them. Oh, that's rock and roll. No, it isn't. It's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea. And finally, speaking of terrible idea, you're gonna do this in New Jersey. You're gonna do it in New York. You're gonna do it in Texas. One day you're gonna block the wrong dude, and so you're there. I don't want it. I think that'll be a epic disaster, but you're begging for that disaster. I mean, with all the guys in Jersey and Texas and all those places, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be political. Okay, what if they got a medical emergency? What if they're trying to get to their sister's wedding? What if anything, and you're blocking them and going, yeah, MAGA, Trump, and let's just, whether they might even be on your side, but even if they're not on your side and they got a safety issue or whatever it is, you guys are nuts, man. You're asking for massive trouble, and I don't want anybody to get that kind of trouble. And that's why Trump's a menace, for them, and he's got to go so that we stop fighting in the streets, which is exactly what he's encouraging us to do. As Anna showed you, literally, he's egging these guys on twice on Twitter. He's like, yeah, go get them. And if Antifa or whatever surrounded his bus, he'd wet himself. Where's my bunker? Arrest them all. We know what kind of a coward you are.
That's exactly right. And look, if someone does get hurt on the Trump side, you know what'll happen. They'll cry about how they're victims, how they're targeted. Oh, we get targeted. Remember how much they cried about how they were allegedly targeted for being Trump supporters? I mean, what are they doing right? And I don't believe that for a second. Someone would say something critical of them online because they're Trump supporters and they would cry about it. But look at what they're doing. They're engaging physically in a way that can really hurt someone. And we've already seen protesters get gunned down by Trump supporters at various protests, like in Kenosha, Wisconsin, for instance. And so no matter what happens to them, they're either the victims or they're the so-called patriots. They're the ones who allegedly believe in democracy in America the most. Everything they claim to be, just understand that they are the opposite. But the most important takeaway from this, for me at least, is the fact that they know that they're losers, that they support a losing candidate, and they have to resort to these types of tactics in order to give their loser candidate a shot at winning. And that's pretty sad.